in my opinion, and I know this would be shared by a lot of avid turkey hunters, the thing about turkey hunting is the game. So a yelp is, it's a two-tone note that a turkey makes. I think that the beard is the big noticeable thing, but really what defines the maturity and the social status of a turkey is his spurs, and that's what he fights with. And you can get them as simple as just a basic small game upland-style vest all the way to a very fancy vest that's got the kickstand thing where you can sit up in a bush and and lean back against the vest. A biologist told me one time, probably an analogy type talk, but a turkey can see a tick crawling up the side of a tree at 50 yards through the woods. I would have never thought in a million years that I was going to get that excited. My heart's about to beat out of my chest. If you would have told me that a stupid turkey was going to make me get that excited, I'd have told you were crazy. This is Locke Wheeler with T3 Game Calls and the Progression Series presented by Scree Gear, and you're listening to Living Country in the City.
Y'all ready for your dose of flyover state spirit? Straight from the concrete jungle? Well, put down your latte and pull on your boots. It's time for Living Country in the City.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to episode 92 of Living Country in the City. I've got a super information-packed episode for y'all, but before we get to that, I just want to say a huge thank you to Sawyer Products for their continual support of the podcast. Y'all, spring and summer are coming up, and as we all know, with that comes the bugs. Make sure y'all get your hands on some Sawyer insect repellent. They have just about any type you could imagine, sprays, lotions, stuff that's safe for your gear, stuff that's safe for your skin, and it is absolutely bulletproof. This stuff is great, y'all. Make sure you check it out at Sawyer.com. All right, y'all, for today's episode, I hopped on the line with a really good buddy of mine that I've known for a couple of years now, Locke Wheeler, out in Louisiana. Locke is just an awesome, no-nonsense, super down-to-earth guy, and he is the man when it comes to turkey hunting. This guy has so much knowledge to share, and he really lays out a lot of it. So if y'all are interested in turkey hunting, interested in getting started in turkey hunting, make sure y'all give this one a real careful listen. Hey, Locke, thanks so much, man, for hopping on the call today.
Yeah, Sam, thanks for having me, man.
So, for those that have not listened to our... I guess you've been on the podcast before, way back in the day when we were all out bow fishing together. But for those who did not listen to that podcast, why don't you give just a quick intro about yourself and how you got your start in hunting?
Okay, well, I'm originally from Mississippi. I currently live in Louisiana, but right near the state line, and I kind of reside here, Louisiana and Mississippi. And as far as my start in hunting, I grew up in the South where hunting is culture and religion, of sorts. So whenever I was old enough for my dad to drag me out in the woods is where I got started, So I've been hunting since I was old enough to go with my dad, and I was blessed enough to have grandfathers and fathers and then friends and their dads, and hunting has always just been a part of our life, small game, big game, mostly deer and squirrel and rabbit and turkey and that kind of stuff. But fishing and hunting is just, it was just how I was raised down here in the South. And, now as an adult, I've been involved in the outdoor industry from a retail standpoint and from a media standpoint and calling and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of grew up in an area of the world where outdoor film and outdoor television kind of got started with Primos and Mossy Oak and Realtree all being right here in my backyard, literally in my backyard down the road from me, some of the main players in that. And they started producing the yearly VHS tapes of The Truth About Hunting and Monster Bucks and all that. And so it was always a big deal for us, to get the movies every year. And so just always had an interest in the industry side of the outdoors, and then as a professional out of college and stuff, I found myself doing inventory retail work through IT in the outdoor industry, and was always big in turkey calling contests because I've always been a big turkey caller, and that led me into kind of the game call market and working with some of that, and my IT and technical background led me to the camera world and the production world from a software and technical standpoint, and all those things have just molded together to like I am a jack of all, master of none.
Well, so you mentioned the turkey calling, and that's a big portion of why I wanted to have you on. To be honest, I don't exactly know what your role is with T3, but is it your company? Do you partner with someone? But you're involved in T3 game calls.
Yeah, so I kind of joke and give myself all these strange titles like, just master of everything, vice president, operations dude, CEO. But, I mean, really, there's nothing official. I'm not the owner. A gentleman named Bruce Solly, who's been in the turkey call and turkey competition calling game for a very long time. This is his company. And I mentioned earlier that I did outdoor retail and when I was a little younger, and through that I kind of met him and started helping him with getting his stuff online and selling online because he, that wasn't something that he had any experience with, and he needed help, and I was using his calls for myself in competitions and as well as hunting, and that's kind of how we came together. And now I'm just kind of like the second man in charge of. He does a lot of the business side of things as far as materials and call building and stuff like that, and I do most of the all of the marketing and online stuff and a lot of those kind of strategies and stuff like that. So he owns it, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know, I'm just kind of whatever needs to be done kind of guy.
I get you. So I let's face it, I know absolutely nothing about turkey calling, turkey hunting. Even more transparent, up until recently, I had zero interest in it. If you had told me when I first started getting interested in hunting that I was going to be wanting to chase turkeys, I would have thought you were crazy. But I've recently started this. I don't know. I've really developed this really keen interest in it, and it's so great because here in California we don't have a spring bear season, but we do have a spring turkey season. And short of predators, it's one of the few things that I'm actually able to hunt that time of year. What is it specifically that kind of drew you? You said you're a big turkey caller. What is it really that drew you to turkey hunting?
Yeah, well, for me, there's a lot of ways to turkey hunt, and I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush, but in my opinion, and I know this would be shared by a lot of avid turkey hunters, the thing about turkey hunting is the game. There's a lot of skill and preparation that goes into all types of hunting, but in a lot of situations, you are reliant on luck. I mean, yeah, luck is somewhat a product of preparation, but with turkey hunting, you're calling the bird to you. I mean, yeah, there are some people that just go and sit and wait on the turkey to walk by, but the sport of spring turkey hunting is revolved around the bird is gobbling, and you are trying to call the bird to you. So it's a cat and mouse game. It is a true hunt in every definition of the word. It's tactical, and the true nature of a tom is he gobbles and he struts and he puts on this grand show in the spring to attract the hens to him. That's how God made these animals. So when you're out there calling and trying to get him into range that you can take a shot, you're actually convincing him to do something that is against his nature. His nature is to get into an open area, to strut, to be big, bright, beautiful, gobble loud, and have all the hens come to him. So if you think about that, what you're doing is you've got to fool him, and you've got to get him to come to you, which is not how God made him. That is not his instinct. And that challenge is what is so, fascinating and so addictive to me. Is every hunt is different. And I know every type of hunt is different in its own way, and I'm a big game hunter and all that stuff too, but man, there's just something about that. And I've not had the opportunities myself to do a lot of the spot and stalk big game hunting that I know you guys do a lot of out in the West, but especially elk hunting in September, I think it's probably that same kind of attraction and draw that you guys get from that, is that excitement of, man, the excitement of the spot and the stalk and the call and the elk is just as exciting as the harvest. It's probably more exciting as the harvest, and that's how I am with turkeys, and I know that's how lots of guys are that that I've hunted with and that I know and that I talk to as turkey hunters. Is, man, there's almost this sense of, once I call him up there, I don't want to shoot him, because if I shoot him, I can't hunt him again. The hunt is what it's about, man, and it's so exciting and it's so thrilling that it's just you want to experience that, where you put your woodsmanship to the test. You put your calling to the test every day that you go out and chase these birds. And when you pick the right spot and you make the right calls and you fool that bird whose instinct is to stand out there out of harm's way and attract the hens to him for breeding, when you fool him to get within, for a bow, within 20 yards, for a shotgun, likely within 40 yards, and you get him there and he's completely fooled and he is in love and he is gobbling and he is, man, the rush and the excitement of that is, it's crazy. It's awesome. And I've hunted with so many people, Sam, just like you, that, man, I never really thought much about it, but I kind of get interested, I want to go. And then you go out there and you call up a bird, and whether you shoot the bird or not, you get the full experience. The bird puts on a show, and they're like, man, I would have never thought in a million years that I was going to get that excited. My heart's about to beat out of my chest. If you would have told me that a stupid turkey was going to make me get that excited, I'd have told you were crazy. But it's just it's an exciting hunt, and just all of those things just, keep you coming back for more.
Oh, it sounds like it, man. You can just hear it listening to you talk. So let's, pun not intended, let's talk turkey basics here.
Okay.
You got the absolute basics for the idiot like me. You got toms, you got hens, you got jakes, right? Am I missing anything in the...
But that's pretty much it. I mean, a poult. A poult is a baby turkey, but that's, I don't guess that counts, because there's no poults in turkey season. They're already grown up by then. But, so a tom is a 2-year-old or older turkey. I mean, the mortality rates of turkeys are high, obviously, like any bird. It's a large nest, hatched nest. And a tom is considered 2-year-olds or higher, and I mean, a turkey that's 4 years old that's pretty old in turkey world. A jake is a 1-year-old turkey. The little short, stubby beard. If you look at his tail when he fans out, his tail will be broken, and basically the middle section of his tail feathers will be longer than the outer section, so it'll kind of make a ledge, where a tom has a full fan. All the feathers make a full half moon. Mm-hmm. Other than that, and sexual maturity, they pretty much act the same. Jakes are obviously like all other immature birds. They're a little bit dumber, less seasoned, but in most states and most avid turkey hunters don't shoot jakes, because it's just kind of a unwritten rule. Let them grow up, let them become toms. But then you got the hens, and there's always more hens than toms, and hens are very territorial as well. And that's one of these big challenges is, you get in a spot with some older hens, what you would hear referred to as boss hens. Mm-hmm. They're very territorial, and if they don't recognize you and you're out there calling, they're going to do everything they can to take their tom or toms and take them away, because they don't want them breeding with other hens. So that's kind of your hierarchy, and that's what you're dealing with in terms of what you should expect to encounter in a flock.
So now, if I'm looking for that big old trophy turkey, if I want to get, like, what do you look for in, like, a quote unquote trophy turkey? Like, what are the characteristics?
Yeah, so I guess the three measurables in the turkey trophy book is beard length, spur length, and weight. And as I'm sure you know, and others that listen know, there's several subspecies of the wild turkey across the country, and they're not all equal. The Merriams and what are bigger than the Osceolas just in general. So the biggest Osceola is the size of a small Merriam, but generally speaking, the beard comes out of the front of the chest and it starts to curve. Once it breaks over and makes a curve, that's another indication outside the tail feathers that the bird is 2 years old or older and mature. So beard length, typically in most of your turkeys throughout the country are Easterns or Rios, most of them. That kind of spans the largest section. And so a big mature gobbler is going to be a 10-inch beard, an inch spurs. A monster turkey is going to have a 12-inch beard and, inch and a half plus spurs. And then, 20 pounds is kind of your benchmark for a big turkey. You get down in Florida and kind of deep south, those birds, a big turkey is more like 18 pounds. You get out in further north, they get up in the mid-20s. So that's really your only measurables is beard length, spur length, and the size of the bird relative to where you're hunting. And, I think that the beard is the big noticeable thing because you see the bird is strutting and you see all his plumage and you see that beard and the long beard gobbler, But really what defines the maturity and the social status of a turkey is his spurs because that's what he fights with. So a turkey that's got big spurs and sharp spurs, longer spurs, is actually the more dominant, more mature turkey because the beard can be affected by so many things. They can get beard rot, it can get torn and pulled on and stuff like that. So you can, much like an old mature buck who doesn't grow a lot of horns, but he's the biggest, baddest dude in the woods, you might kill a bird with a 7-8 inch beard, but he's got inch and a half, sharp daggers for spurs, and he's probably a pretty dominant bird.
Gotcha. So just to define for the listeners, what is the beard? What are the spurs? Like if you're looking at a turkey.
Yeah, if you're looking at the turkey, the black, what you would call it, like hair, it's a beard. Comes out under his wattles, the red part of his head. In the center of his chest, the hair that kind of comes out and makes a braid of sorts, that's the beard. And then the spurs are on his legs, between what I guess you would call his knee and his foot. The same thing that's on a chicken that, fighting roosters have. Mm-hmm. They have a spur, and it's just like a big, sharp pointed toenail type that sticks out the back of their leg. And then, when they fly up and they attack, that they use that spur to fight with.
You just... Wait, I'm sorry, you just caught me. There's a quote that I use with a couple of buddies all the time from Waterboy, and I don't know. Well, if I would guess, I would say it's about his knee.
Exactly. I was actually that kind of thing going through my mind. Like,
I just about lost
a knee
it.
On a turkey? I don't know if that's what you call it, but the bend in his leg. I guess it's his knee. I don't know. That's a good question, but
that's all that was going through my head when you said that.
Look, honestly, I didn't think of the movie The Waterboy, but that kind of the connotation of what you're talking about was going through my head. I was like, should I call this a knee? Is it a knee? I don't know, but that's the best thing that came to mind. But look, people want to, people kind of want to know about a turkey. Let me tell you something. Pound for pound, that is a bad dude. You don't, you think it's just a bird. You see these YouTube videos of these barnyard turkeys messing with people and goose that chase. Dude, a turkey will tear you up. They got them spurs and they're on their legs and, but yeah, you go up there and grab a turkey that ain't dead, you'll find out exactly how you can use those spurs because a turkey is a mean animal when he wants to be, and he a big mature gobbler. They say. I've listened to with the NWTF events, and they got the big NWTF convention in Nashville in February with the Grand National Calling Contest and all that, and I've listened to so many biologists talk about different things, and the mortality rate of turkeys is high, but they say that once a turkey reaches what we call in the South a super jake. A super jake is a big jake. You got what we call a pigeon. I guess you asked about this, and I didn't go into this, but this is kind of a subset of what you asked. So you kind of got two different jakes. You got a jake that we call, I don't know what the scientific biologist terminology is exactly, but I'll use my lingo, okay? And you talking about the water boy, I'm down here in water boy country. So we call a big jake that can gobble and strut and will challenge other birds, we call those super jakes. And, you know, their beard will be 3 or 4 inches long, and they'll have little knobby spurs. I mean, they're not really sharp enough for them to fight with, but they're big enough to gobble. You know, there's a debate I've heard debate amongst biologists about whether they can actually reproduce or not, but they'll try, you know. And we call those super jakes, and they'll fool you. You know, you'll be in the woods and he'll be gobbling, and you'll think it's a big tom, and he'll show up and he's a jake, you know, but he can gobble just like a tom, and he'll run other toms off if there's more than one of them. And then what we call a pigeon is I guess a later hatch jake, and they basically act like they're kind of stupid. Truthfully, they just peck around. They don't really participate in the. They'll gobble every now and then later in the spring, but they don't really participate in the breeding stuff. The hens don't really hang out with them. They're just kind of outcast. They're like the little pimple-faced teenagers that aren't really physically mature enough to be a part of the varsity squad, but they're not, you know, they're too pimply and whatever to be a part of the girls. They're just kind of outcast, you know, but so that's kind of your two different jakes. Guess I just threw that in there since I missed that part of the question earlier.
No, that's awesome. I've seen, like, you can see in a lot of videos how aggressive they are, because, like, I see a lot of ads and a lot of videos for those turkey decoys that you can, like, hide behind.
Yeah.
And you just see,
turkey,
like...
And, you know, with that being said, Sam, they don't fight fair, because you know how all that works. Like, they don't. They're punks, you know. They're like the little punk kids on the corner. If you get one turkey, the question I think that we were talking about, I was saying I've heard the debate from biologists about the mortality rate. They say once a turkey gets to what I was considering super jake, that there's not really a whole lot out there that's going to kill him. I mean, a predator obviously can, but he's big enough and strong enough and wily enough that they once they get to that mature age, the human is really, unless you got a super high predator population. But what I was saying, you know, the fans and stuff, that works up, that's really more of a Midwestern and really any area of the country where you got a lot of open ground. Mm-hmm. And the thing about that is that, you know, if you really dive into what's going on, they're punks, because if you get one gobbler out in the field by himself and you flash that fan at him, he's liable to leave because he you know, whatever. But if there's 2 or 3 of them, they're going to come get you. You know, if you get a couple, two or three 2-year-olds, and they think, oh, we got the old man cornered now, and the jakes will do that. Especially in places like Texas where there's super high turkey population density. Mm-hmm. Man, these big jakes, they'll get, you know, they don't really separate like the old turkeys because you know, they haven't really figured out the whole breeding pattern, the sexual maturity thing. So they stay in groups of 5 or 6, and they're big enough to be dangerous. And man, they'll harass gobblers. And I've hunted in Texas specifically and other places with a lot of turkeys on where, man, you can't, you know, you get on a big turkey and he's scared to death if he thinks the jakes are around, because every time he struts and gobbles, the jakes come run him off, you know. They're very aggressive animals in the springtime specifically.
Yeah, I've seen tons of videos of them charging and all kinds of crazy crap, and you don't expect it. You kind of I don't know, especially like, you know, you've seen barnyard ones, you expect them to almost be like a friendly, jolly animal. I don't know.
Yeah, they're not at all. They're like first cousins with a goose, and I think everybody that's ever watched YouTube knows how mean a goose is.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, you don't mess with a goose either, man.
Oh yeah.
Like, goose is bad, and the turkey's the same way. I mean, you know, they're very different. And for people that are mostly fall big game hunters, you know, they have wintering flocks, and they have, you know, obviously the spring where they're breeding, and they do change a lot. And a lot of times in your big winter flocks, they seem to be pretty docile. They just kind of move around and in like almost like a flock of ducks. They kind of move together, and they'll come out in the field, and they're just kind of in a pattern, you know, and they seem pretty docile and all that. In the springtime when they're breeding, they get, you know, the hens are, like I said earlier, the hens are very territorial towards other hens. They at least until they start nesting, they don't want other hens coming in and taking their gobblers, and the gobblers and the big jakes are obviously in competition with each other for breeding. So yeah, man, that's another part of what's fun about it is it plays into the whole game, playing into their aggressive instincts and the way that the flock interacts with each other and the decisions that you make as a hunter on how to set up and how to call and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, that all plays right into it, and it's more of the intrigue and more of the excitement of the bird you're hunting.
So speaking of calling, that's that's pretty much the optimal way to hunt turkeys, right? I mean, you can set up blinds, wait for them to come by, but you're kind of shooting in the dark there, and you don't get that same excitement. But so, I mean, am I right in saying calling's kind of the optimal way to hunt?
Yeah, I mean, if you want the full experience, I mean, I know there are some people that just, they want to get a trophy tom, they want to fill a tag and that kind of thing, and maybe they're, physically not able to really walk a lot. I mean, let's just be honest, there's not a lot of small track hunting in turkeys because you can walk a small tract of land pretty quickly in the morning trying to set up on a bird or chasing a bird around, So if you're not able physically, or you're not into doing a lot of walking, or you got a lot of open country where you can't move around without being seen, you can do more scouting and kind of figure out how the turkeys are, when they fly down off the roost, where they're going, and you can kind of set up in those areas and just use your calling to just kind of get them in gun range. The true, I guess, optimal, to use your word, way that of the full experience is, you locate that bird on the roost, he's gobbling, he's trying to, gather his hens, and you try to, set out a plan in motion there to get on him, and when he gets on the ground, to get yourself in a position where you can fool him into coming to you, and you interact with him basically the whole time. You're calling to him, he's answering, and you're trying to convince him, no, don't stay out there, you come over here, those kind of interactions. And yeah, that's, you want the true experience, that's it.
So now, just like calling any other animal, I imagine, turkeys have their own language, right?
Yeah, they do. And it's probably, so I've done everything we mentioned except I've not done elk hunting. And I know that elk calling is a big thing, and I don't know anything about it, so I'm not going to speak for that. But I've done a lot of waterfowl hunting, and obviously, we have deer calls and stuff like that. And what I'm familiar with, the turkey has the most, the broadest language. They do a lot, even more than ducks, and ducks do a lot. So yeah, they do have their own language, and it changes in the spring. Understanding the way turkeys communicate in the spring is different from how they communicate in their larger flocks in the winter and stuff like that. So, the gobblers primarily, at least in the spring, primarily they only gobble. They can and they will yelp and cluck and stuff like that. And then, of course, the hens make all kind of noise. They cut, they cackle, they yelp, they purr. They whine and when there's lots of sounds that most turkey hunters don't even make because they don't know how to make them on the calls, or it's just not a common sound, and not that it's necessary. But I mean, a hen, if you listen to a group of hens in the springtime communicating with a gobbler and communicating with each other, if you just sit quietly at daylight and listen to them in the tree and listen to them on the ground, they make, alien-like noises. The whining and whimpering and purring and, the stuff that they do. And a lot of that is where you go from your traditional, most people are going to yelp. They're going to cluck. They're going to cackle like a turkey that's flying down out of the tree, or a turkey that's flying over a fence or something like that. Those are your typical calls, and those are the louder calls and the demonstrative ones that you hear. But, if you're trying to mimic a couple of hens that this gobbler wants to, strut and breed with, when they're sitting around scratching around doing their thing, they're constantly purring and these little whinnies and whines and stuff like that. And so they're a bird. And if you listen to songbirds or any other kind of bird, birds can make a lot of noises, and turkeys the same way.
So I am going to put you on the spot here. Do you have any of your calls on you?
Yeah. I mean, I can step into my office.
There we go.
We can try this. It doesn't often sound great over the phone, but I mean, we can do a few things.
We'll see
try
what
to
happens.
do it.
Here we go. So
we'll try to do it where it's not right up in the phone.
All right, so as you're grabbing your calls, we're going to take a quick break to hear a word from one of my partners. All right, y'all, we all know there's folks out there who are successful year after year rocking a set of bargain bin Walmart camo. However, a full layering system of premium hunting clothes can make a huge impact on your comfort level when you're spending time deep in the backcountry, and can really be the difference between going longer and harder or just going home. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I personally can't afford to drop $3,000 or even more on a full set of premium hunting gear. Now, that's why I'm excited to tell y'all about Scree Gear. Not only is Scree as capable and durable as any of the other premium lines out there, it also comes in at a price point that won't leave you too broke to put in for tags. Scree's patterns use the science behind perception and fractal concealment and have been designed by one of the foremost concealment experts out there. He's designed for militaries, law enforcement, and special forces in the US and around the world. Not only are their patterns incredibly versatile for any sort of terrain, but their layering systems allow you to pack a minimal amount of gear for maximum effect. So whether you're side-hilling across rocky debris in the baking desert sun or crawling over snow-covered deadfall high up in the frozen Rockies, Scree's versatile layering system has you covered. Literally. And if that's not enough, for that added layer of confidence, Scree offers an outfitter and military discount, a limited lifetime warranty on all their gear, and free returns on new gear until you find the perfect fit. Even better, you can get 10% off all orders from the Scree store by using code COUNTRY10. Check out that Scree discount along with discounts from other awesome outdoor companies by visiting my partners page at livingcountryinthecity.com/partners. All right, we are back. Locke has gotten his call ready. We made sure it doesn't sound too awful on the phone. So, all right. So we're talking about the different types of sound. We're talking about the different types of sounds that turkeys make. Let's maybe start with some of the basics that you might hear during your spring turkey season.
Okay. So, I am in an enclosed room, and so just if there's any distortion, just the sound's going to be a little bit off. But like you said, we're just going to try to hit the rhythm and what you're looking at with that. So try if it sounds a little bit distorted, just this ain't the optimal way to record sound. So a yelp is usually a 3 or 5 note, just basic communication. It would go something like, and it's a 2-tone note that a turkey makes. You can imagine their mouth opening and closing. It starts high. A younger turkey will be more high pitched. A lot of times, an older hen will have more rasp, which is more of your lower, kind of broken notes. And they use the yelp in a lot of different ways. When a turkey's in a tree yelp is real soft, just kind of imagine somebody just kind of sitting up in bed drinking a cup of coffee and just kind of, talking about, whatever. And but when they're trying to talk to each other, just a basic yelp and basic communications like 3 or 5. So like, or maybe a longer would be a, and so they'll use that call. That's the yelp, but that's the primary, and they'll use that in a lot of ways. A hen, kind of your boss hen in the flock, she'll do, and when she's trying to gather the flock, she may walk through the woods and yelp for a long time. She may string out 20 yelps. They may speed it up, slow it down based on excitement. So the yelp is the typical. I mean, the other, you got clucks, and that's just kind of a basic communicator. They'll cluck all the time, honestly. They'll cluck, they'll yelp, they'll go. They'll cluck in between yelps, and a lot of times they'll just walk through the woods and just cluck. That's just a basic turkey language. And the same thing as a yelp, they'll use the clucks in a lot of ways. They'll cluck sporadically, they'll cluck excited, and they'll communicate with that, and they'll break that up and into multiple uses. They'll use it with a purr. A purr is a content call. A purr is often heard when turkeys are feeding. So when a hen or a group of hens are, they're scratching in the leaves, they'll purr. So it's like a and it sounds better on a mouth call than it does on a friction, but it works. If you hear a turkey purring, they're content, they're not startled. They'll never purr if they're alert. The purring is always a flock call where they're just content and just and that's where they throw in a lot of those crazy sounds. They're hard to make on a friction call, easier to do on a mouth call. Simple, kind of like a.
So really quick, just to clarify, you're using the kind of call you're using right now.
This is a pot call. A lot of people commonly refer to it as a slate call because the traditional Indians would put a piece of slate rock in their hand or situated in a wooden pot type, and they would scratch on it with a stick. And people that have looked at turkey calls, you're wooden, or sometimes they're plastic, whatever, and so it's got a calling surface. This one is actually a ceramic calling surface, and it has soundboard underneath it, sitting in a pot, and then you have what's called a striker, like a stick. So you're basically creating friction on top of that surface. So that's what I'm using. Probably the oldest. It is the oldest. It's the original call that the Native Americans used, to call turkeys. They would get a piece of flat slate rock and another rock or a stick or some other hard striker, and they would create friction on top of that surface to create these clucks and yelps and stuff. So that's what I'm using. So, we're talking about the purrs and the clucks, and so they'll do that. When they purr, they may that kind of stuff. And then they'll also cluck when they cackle. Cackle is just an excited cluck. Like if a turkey pitches up over a ditch or a creek or over a fence or flies down off the roost, they'll cackle, and so it's like a, something like that. So they're just, basically, it's just an excited cluck. That's your basic communication. The only other really thing that you're likely to hear that you don't want to hear in the woods is what's called like a putt, and it's more of it's kind of hard to, maybe I can do it on this mouth call. So it's more like a, and if they do that, they're about to leave. They've seen something, they throw their head up, and it's a real hard pop kind of type of cluck, and that means I don't know what's up, but something's up. It's kind of a warning call. That's your basic language. I mean, of course, everybody knows what a gobble sounds like, but finding how they use those basic notes and those basic pieces of language is how you identify their language.
So then, as a turkey hunter, going into the woods, how would I use these calls to draw in a tom?
Okay, so let's go through. All right, so how about this? This will be kind of a fun little experiment. We'll go through a basic hunt scenario from start to finish. Okay, this will be a real typical, lucky you just found the right bird type thing. Easy hunt. So, turkey starts gobbling at daylight, right before daylight. Let's just assume we're in the right part of the season, and he's ready to gobble, and he's ready to breed, and you've found yourself on the right piece of property at the right time. Okay, so the idea is he's gobbling in order to say, hey, here I am, all you hens, y'all fly down and come over here, and let's do our thing, So if they're really hot, they'll start gobbling on their own, but they'll gobble at sounds, and that's called a shock gobble. They're just, so like a hoot owl, everybody knows what a hoot owl sounds like, but I'm going to do it anyway. A hoot owl busts out, turkey can't help it. I mean, you can blow a car horn, he can't help it. Just bop, he gobbles. So, because it's just that time of the year. Me personally, and my advice as a hunter, if you've got to wait till it starts breaking daylight and start yelping to get a turkey to gobble, you can gauge interest level there. If he's not gobbling on his own, he's not that fired up, and you're already kind of behind the 8 ball of catching his interest. You know what I'm saying? So what you want is you want a crow to start, flying over right at daylight, or a hoot owl to start, and you want him to gobble, and you want to locate him. And what you want to try to do is know your area, know the woods you're hunting in, and have some idea, hopefully, of what's going on here from a woodsmanship perspective, so that while it's still dark, because a turkey can't see in the dark like other animals, you want to be able to get as close to the right area and physically close to him while he's still up in the tree, so that you can, start to convince him, hey, I'm a hen, you're gobbling, I'm here, fly down, come to me, type thing. So maybe, he's out in the woods and you're on the edge of a field, and you want to say, hey, fly down, come over to this field, type thing. So what you want to do is you want to locate that turkey. Maybe you walk out in the woods and you blow a hoot owl call, or preferably, I'm going to wait on that. I'm going to try to give it as long as I can and let him gobble on his own. I don't want to make one single sound, no matter how good I am at blowing an owl call. I don't want to have to make a sound if he's going to let me know where he's at on his own. That makes sense, right? I mean, we can all be as good as we want to be as callers, but we're still manufacturing a sound. It's still not natural. And any game animal you're hunting can get wise to you in different situations. So we're going to locate the bird first. Hopefully he's hot and he's ready to gobble, and he starts gobbling on his own, and I don't have to call to him until I'm set up. But let's just say I do, and so I blow a hoot owl call, and he gobbles. And now he's excited, and he's starting to gobble at other sounds. So I'm going to try to get, based on woodsmanship here, I'm going to try to get in a likely scenario. I don't want to get below him. He is, again, we talked about the nature of a turkey. He wants to show out and gobble and strut. He wants to attract. So if he's on an elevated position, what's he going to do? He's going to stay on the elevated position and say, I ain't coming down there. This is a battle. This is a war, right? I'm not coming up there and putting myself, or coming down there and coming down the hill. You're going to come to me, and I can see you coming. So you want to get above him or on level with him. You don't want to get on the other side of a fence. You don't want to get on the other side of a creek. You don't want to have a physical barrier between you and him. And then obviously you want to use your scouting and whatever intel you have to be in a position where the turkeys like to go. Maybe they fly down and they go out in a field and they catch grasshoppers and they dust their wings. Maybe that's just their normal pattern. You do want to try to get in a position where that this is a likely area that the turkeys naturally move towards when they fly down off the roost. So you're going to find that spot, right? Okay, whatever that spot is. An open ridge, edge of a field, whatever. Then the next thing is kind of hard to figure, but if you can hear hens, most of the time, the turkey he knows where his hens are. He's not going to fly up with them. If you're hunting in out west or in Texas where there's not a lot of trees, they may roost together because of lack of roost trees. But if you're hunting in the south or the east or anywhere where there's a lot of timber, the gobblers are not going to fly up in the same tree as the hens. He's probably going to be close to them, like, sometimes 50 yards, maybe 100, 200 yards, but he's not going to fly up with them in the same tree. So if you can get in there dark enough to get between him and his hens, we've talked enough now. You can imagine, right, what that's doing. Mm-hmm. You're in the, you're between him and his hens. You're in a good spot, right? So you want to try to accomplish that. A lot of times you won't, because you won't even hear the hens. You won't even know what tree they're in. So you just got to use woodsmanship. So I'm going to sit down at that point, and I'm just going to start soft calling and get him interested. So, we talked about the tree yelps, the little clucks. I just want to mimic. I'm just a hen, and I'm just kind of playing hard to get with you, buddy. I'm letting you know I'm here. I might cut and yelp aggressively at other hens to try to create that kind of communication and let him know that, hey, I'm real and I'm here and I'm competing for breeding rights and that kind of stuff. But a big mistake that people make is he starts gobbling at them, they get excited, and they start calling a whole lot because they want him to answer. And it's exciting, man. When you blaze like I'm sure with an elk, you call to an elk and he bugles at you. That's exciting, right? I mean, that's part of the reason I'm out here. That's success in and of itself, right? So, but that can be counterproductive in turkey hunting because now you're playing into his natural instincts. So what's happening, right? He's gobbling. Hey, she's answering me. She's coming. She's coming to me. Every time I gobble, she answers. So you want to play hard to get. And, from there, man, we can go a lot of different ways. hopefully what happens there is you've set the table. You can pick your spots where, hopefully there's not another hen close by and he's kind of lonely and he just like, you're the only one, he comes right to you. That's the kind of hunt everybody's looking for. But if there are other hens in the area, you may end up yelping back and forth with them, and you may lose. He may go to them, they may go to him and take him off. But you're just trying to be a part of the flock, and you just got to hunt, and you got to have experiences that tell you when to get aggressive, when to try to turn him around, and just really hammer on him and get him to come your way, and when to lay off and not get him, because he'll hang up. Like I said, if you call too much, he'll just sit out there and gobble and go, look, I hear you. Why aren't you coming over here? That kind of thing. So that's it. Does that answer your question? That's kind of the 101 of what a successful morning where you're able to locate a bird and set up on him. That's what it's going to be like, and those decisions that you make will have the biggest effect on your success or failure. And truthfully, one of the things that makes a terrible turkey hunter is a lonely 2-year-old Tom, because some bigger turkey has got all the hens, and he's out roaming around looking for a hen that he can breed. And it gets dark, and he flies up in this big oak tree, and there's not a hen around, but guess who's there the next morning? You, right? And it gets daylight, and he's gobbling his head off because he's like, man, I was walking around looking for a hen all day yesterday, and I'm in this beautiful spot in this big, beautiful oak tree, and I'm just going to start gobbling. And then, lo and behold, God gifted him with this guy over here. He's got a box call, yelping at him. It sounds so sweet. And you sit down pretty much anywhere, and that sucker hits the ground and runs up there, full-fledged. Man, he's excited, dude. He just picked the right spot, and he gets shot in the head. That makes a bad turkey hunter because you can't really do any wrong, in that situation. I mean, he's, there's not enough mornings like that because it's just so awesome. But at the same time, it doesn't teach you a whole lot because typically, you got to deal with the hens or other gobblers or jakes. And those dynamics within the flock, there's not a lot of direct answers I can give you. You kind of got to feel it out. It's, how you communicate with the flock and how you blend in. And then using your woodsmanship. Like I said, knowing the property where you're hunting enough about it, studying topo maps and stuff like that, and understanding that, hey, when he's gobbling at daylight, he's elevated, and he sounds a lot different, but I know that where he's probably going to fly down is here, and when he does that, he's on the other side of a ditch. I can't, I got to get over there before it gets daylight while I can still move around because he's not going to cross the ditch. And he's not. He'll cross the ditch on his own, but he's not going to cross the ditch if you're calling to him because that instinct comes in. I say he's not. He's probably not. We're playing statistics here. Obviously, there's an exception to every rule. But, a turkey will walk up and down a barbed wire fence that he calls under every single day of his life. He goes under that fence to go over here and feed every day. But if you're calling to him, he's just going to strut back and forth up and down that fence because that's what his instincts tell him to do. That's how he's safe. Hey, look, here I am. Where are you at? So that's what you're going to experience on a morning, and that's your basic calls. And the best thing to do, Sam, is to listen to hens because they're, ultimately, they're trying to do the same thing you're trying to do. They're trying to get him. So, in the springtime. So you listen to how they communicate with each other and how they communicate with him, and you can learn a whole lot. And it doesn't matter how good of a caller you are. Because if you sit in the woods, I can't tell you how many times I've sat in the woods and listened to a hen yelp, and I thought, whoever that is over there needs to learn how to use that turkey call. And then all of a sudden, here comes a hen walking up, just squawking, and it sounds terrible. It sounds just like, that obnoxious kid in Bass Pro that got the demo call off the shelf, and it's just his parents don't know how to tell him when to put it down. It sounds just like that, but lo and behold, I'm looking at it. It's an actual hen. So the turkey language, and like you said about the sounds, the turkeys are so different and they're so diverse. And, you go into a calling contest, there is this premium sound that judge is looking for, and there's this premium sound that we're trying to achieve as callers that sounds like that beautiful, perfect hen, but they don't all sound that way. It's more about making the right calls at the right times, having the right rhythm, and being realistic more than it is a perfect two-tone yelp or a perfect a perfect cut or not making a mistake. Man, a turkey walks through the woods and makes all kind of stupid sounds, like I said. So if you scratch a little bit on the surface of your friction call in between yelps, you ain't hurting nothing. If you sit there and listen, the hens do that while they're feeding. It sounds like a turkey, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so listening to hens and listening to how they talk to each other, that's how I learned to turkey hunt. We talked about, you asked like kind of my history. My dad did not actually turkey hunt. The first turkey hunt my dad ever went on was I was in college and I took him. But we had a large property and a lot of turkeys. And when I was a kid, when I was old enough to go out by myself, he loved to go to the camp and cook and hang out and stuff, you know. So we would go to the camp and he'd turn me loose and let me hunt, but he didn't turkey hunt. So I learned to turkey hunt as a 12, 13-year-old kid, making 150 mistakes every hunt I went on. And I finally learned to slow down and listen to the turkeys, and I learned to correct things that I did wrong and that kind of thing. So, and then, of course, learned from adults that I ended up hunting with. But that's really what it's about, because I think a lot of people, they get caught up in this, well, man, why don't you come call up a turkey for me? I can't use that call like you. Well, man, you don't have to have a beautiful 5-note, high-scoring yelp. You just got to use the yelp at the right time and the right situation. It doesn't have to sound perfect. It's just got to be at the right time. And so, you know, you learn those things, and like I said, the best thing to happen to you is to have a couple easy hunts and get your feet wet. But what's going to benefit you the most if you're a new turkey hunter is getting beat. You get beat by a bunch of hens. Let that happen to you a lot, and you'll learn a whole lot, because you'll hear those hens, and they'll outcall you. They'll literally outcall you. You'll be calling, that turkey will be gobbling to you, and that hen over there, she won't be calling very much, but he'll fly down and go straight to her. You know, and you'll learn a lot of lessons that way.
So you mentioned something in it. You talked about shooting them in the head, and that actually brought up a thought for me. Talking about a little bit about the different, I guess, for lack of a better term, weapons you can use for turkey hunting, and shot placement related to those.
Okay, so basically shotgun or bow, right? It's not. I would. Don't let me lie to you, but I'm pretty confident that it's not legal to use a rifle any state spring turkey hunting. It might be legal to shoot one in the fall season, but spring turkey, it's a shotgun, and it's nothing larger than a number 2. So it's basically got to be a scatter shot type of shell, and of course they make the turkey shells that are loaded hotter with more powder and more pellets. So you're looking for something like a number 4, number 5, maybe as small as a number 6 shotgun. And you know, with a shotgun, it sounds however it sounds, but you're shooting them in the head. You know, it's if you look at a gobbler, I guess the real telltale identification is the big red wattles on his neck, and they get more red the more he gobbles, because there's blood flowing to his head. And so what you want to do is you want to aim right where those red wattles meet the feathers. So you're basically shooting him in the neck and the head, and it's pretty much instant death at that point. So he's got a lot of feathers, and if he's fluffed up, you'd be surprised how much they can absorb. So you're looking for a headshot. And then with a bow, there's a lot of different angles, but the thing about a bow is when you undress that turkey from all of his feathers, he's not that big, right? So he's not that big. So from a lot of different angles, you're trying to get the largest, most, I guess, kinetic impact on the body as you can. I know that it's a big thing. You see a lot of these videos, these people shooting these big guillotine broadheads, and they're shooting the turkeys in the head, basically cutting their head off with these big, 5-6 inch guillotine broadheads. Those things don't fly very well, so you got to have, you got to be in a blind and have the turkey like 5 to 15 yards, really. If you're shooting him with a more standard archery equipment and not these specialized broadheads, you're looking for something really big, like a 2-inch rage or some really big expandable head, and you're looking to set your archery equipment up where it really delivers a thump, because a turkey that is very mortally wounded can get up and fly, and there's not no blood trail. So archery, I know it's a challenge, and there's archery turkey seasons. I don't do a lot of archery hunting myself because I just enjoy the shotgun. I enjoy calling them up close. I enjoy hunting that way. But archery is a common form, and a lot of people do it. And like I said, it's just you gotta study the bird, and you gotta study the shot angles of how you're gonna put that arrow right through the middle of his body, because he's not very big, and you can shoot him in what looks like a great spot, and it basically just cut through feathers and skin, and he's gone. So you're looking to shoot him like kind of not really in the breast, but kind of right below the beard if he's facing you. Right, basically up the butt from behind, where you can. That's
little Texas heart shot action.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I don't really know a better way to say that, but you're just looking for you imagine this 3D image of you take away all the feathers and you're looking at a butterball. So you're looking at how you can, get that arrow through the middle of his body, because when he's strutting, all of that that's hanging down in the front is all feathers. It looks like a big old breast, but it's really not. His breast is up there by his beard, and it's not very big. It's maybe the size of a basketball. So you can, a strutting turkey, you can shoot through a lot of feathers and never touch any flesh at all. So those are your two weapons. If you want my advice, you just get you a 12 gauge, get you a full choke, and some actual turkey shotgun shells, turkey loads. Every brand makes them, and then they got these really hot ones. Stick you a piece of paper out there at 40 yards, and pattern it. Find a shell that your gun shoots well, and you can get the most pellets in an area the size of a plain piece of paper, and put it on his wattles and shoot him in the head, and it's over with. You don't have to worry about it.
Do it the simple way. Start out the simple way, for sure.
Hey, man, there's something exciting about it, man.
Oh no, there absolutely is.
I'll be, I guess, just as blunt and guy talk as I can. Shooting a turkey with a bow can be kind of anticlimactic. It really can, because the turkey, it's not the kind of impact that you get with big game, and he usually flops around and flies off and does all that kind of stuff. But, dude, there's just something about shooting him in the head with a shotgun at 25 yards. It's just exciting. It's just something about it. It's just that instant gratification.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of where my mind is on it. I'm a big turkey hunter, and I've shot them with a bow, but I just prefer. And I'm a big bow hunter, man. So with that being said, I don't firearm hunt, for big game at all. I bow hunt, for deer. That's all I do is bow hunt. But when it comes to turkeys, man, the shotgun is where it's at for me.
So we've talked about the weapons. We've talked a little bit about the call types. You got the pot calls, or the slate calls, and you got the mouth calls, which are similar to like a diaphragm elk call, which actually I think is where the diaphragm elk calls may have originated. I mean, I'm sure somebody will.
Well, it's the exact same thing. It's just you got different the reeds. It's the exact same thing as a diaphragm elk call. It's just the reed configuration and the stretches, and maybe the thickness of the latex or prophylactic or whatever material that's being stretched across the frame. It's different stretches to achieve different notes and sounds, but it's the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know a lot about elk calls, but I'm guessing that it's probably a thin reed and it's stretched really tight so that it's really high pitched, and gives you that the cow elk sound. With a turkey call, you get a lot of configurations. You get as many as 3 reeds, and you get different cuts in the reeds that help you get those different notes where, like we talked about, the two-tone where you kind of start high, and then you get the rasp in there, and, all those different things in the mouth call reed, how tight it's stretched, how thick the material is, and the kind of cuts that are in the reeds. That's how all that's achieved, but they're the same thing. For your listeners that are Western hunters and do, if you can blow an elk call, you can blow a turkey call. I mean, it's the same thing.
So what other gear would you say is essential for the turkey hunter?
Well, as far as the calls go, we've talked about that, and you just kind of got to get what's good for you. You've got the box calls and other type of frictions, and then you got your locator calls, coyote howler, owl hooter, crow call, those kind of things that you can blow and try to, make a loud noise and locate a bird. So you want to, as far as that goes, gear, The other thing, and I think everybody knows this, turkeys can see. That's their thing, their eyesight. So camouflage is a big deal. You've got to be, you're not going to get away with things that you might get away with, behind a rifle at 100 yards or 20 foot up in a tree stand. You're going to be ground level, so you got to be camouflaged head to toe. So you're looking for good gear that blends in, and they're not colorblind, and there are any of these other things that you hear about deer. I mean, a turkey can see, and they can see very well. So you're looking for good patterns, good spring patterns with green or whatever matches the landscape you're in. So gloves, face mask, headgear.
I hear that they can actually see you, like, blink from 30 yards or something, 30, 40 yards away.
Yes. No, they say that a biologist told me one time, again, this is probably an analogy-type talk, but, he said it literally. A turkey can see a tick crawling up the side of a tree at 50 yards through the woods.
Jeez. I guess if that's what they're eating, if they're looking for bugs and stuff, they got to have that eyesight.
Yeah, they can see that well. So, camouflage is a big deal. So when you break that down, the other thing is camo in the turkey woods. Like I said, there are places, maybe you have a smaller piece of property and you don't move around a lot, and you kind of set up in certain areas and work the birds from just certain areas. And then, if you're in a blind or whatever, you can probably be a little looser. But generally speaking, if you come hunting with me, we're going to work at it. We're going to move around. We're going to really work the bird and chase the bird, and, maybe we kill him in the first set. But, so a lot like I would guess a lot of the backpacking, you need good gear, because you need gear that is warm when you're sitting on a cool morning working a bird, but is also performs when you're up walking and chasing a bird. And so aside from a good camouflage pattern, you need good gear that's dependable and reliable and performs, because you're going to probably be crawling around, climbing up and down. You're going to be putting the gear to the test in that. So you want that. You want really good boots, because, we just talked about the walking. So you're going to want good boots. Most people are going to wear knee-high boots or snake boots because it is springtime. Outside of that, you see turkey vests. I'm sure everybody that spends much time looking at outdoor gear has seen turkey vests. I don't use a turkey vest myself because I just like to be lightweight. I kind of just carry a little English man purse thrown over my shoulder with my stuff in it, and a little cushion that I sit on. But with that being said, they got the little lounger chairs and different types of cushions. Again, the turkey can see really well, and you may be sitting on the ground against a tree or against a log or something. You may be having to sit really, really still for an extended period of time. So, you do want to have some sort of system, whatever fits you, whether it's a turkey vest with the flip down seat cushion or one of these little strutter seats that sit up against the tree.
Wait. Hold on a second here. Are you telling me they make vests for turkey hunting that have an ass pad that you can flip down and sit on?
You're telling me you've never seen one of these?
I have. This is the greatest. I've never even heard of something like this.
Dude, okay, so when we get off the phone or off this podcast, I am literally going to go out there and take a picture of one in my hunting room and send it to you.
Oh,
but yeah,
it's
a vest, and it's got like a... So have you seen like the small game vests that have like the back compartment where you can put your squirrels or your birds or or your what I'm talking about?
Dude, I have not seen any of this. This is a whole new world for me.
All right, so it's just a vest that's got a lot of compartments, because the turkey hunter's got a lot of stuff, right? You got your bug spray and all your calls and your shotgun shells and your gloves and your face, all this stuff. Just imagine any kind of tactical style vest that's just built with a lot of pockets but still trying to be lightweight, So on the back of it, it's going to have a large compartment. Your whole back is going to be kind of like a slip-in large compartment where you can stick decoys, and you could actually stick the whole bird down in there and carry it out if you're packing it out. But it's going to have a big cushion, that's got they're making a lot of them with these magnetic clips where they kind of flip up and attach to your back, and then some of them will have just little clasp type clips, and you get on a bird, you just flip the seat down, sit down on it, and then so you're sitting there wearing a vest with all the pockets and your butt pads attached to your back, and it flips down, and you sit down. And some of them have kickstands where you can sit up in the middle of a bush and lean back against the vest. Yeah, dude, they got wild. They got a lot of wild stuff. And
this is blowing my mind right now. Blowing my mind.
You just need to go to Cabela's or BassPro.com and just look up turkey vest. Just type in turkey vest. They'll have 100 of them. And you can get them as simple as just a basic small game upland style vest with a cushion that attaches to the back, all the way to a very fancy, vest that's got the kickstand thing where you can sit up in a bush and and lean back against the vest. They got all that.
I want one of these for predator hunting.
Honestly, they have started to market them that way. What you're thinking is exactly right. They have started to market a lot of these vests kind of as dual role spring turkey predator, because it's the exact same thing. You're sneaking up to wherever you're predator hunting, and you find a setup, and you need to be able to sit down and get set up and start calling. And maybe you don't have the perfect tree or log to get up against. You get up in a bush, and everything's right there, easy to carry, that kind of thing.
This is blowing my mind, man. You've changed my world here with this turkey vest thing.
Well, so here's my opinion of it, man. And again, everybody is different, and most people I hunt with have a turkey vest. Most of them have a very expensive vest, and the more features that you have on a vest, the heavier it is, right? I mean, that's inevitable. It's the more crap that you pack with you on any kind of hunt, the heavier it gets. No matter how expensive and lightweight it's supposed to be, the simple amount of it creates weight. And I don't like that myself. And a lot of that's because I'm usually carrying camera equipment, because I'm always doing the media production stuff. So myself, I don't do that, but you do. It is essential. And you ask, what should people be thinking about? You got to think about that, because that's what it's about. If you're not going to a blind where you're already set up and you're going to get in there and sit in a chair of some kind, if you're going to just go out in the woods and say, hey, when the turkey gobbles, I'm going to go find somewhere to set up and hunt him, you got to sit down and you got to sit still. And that turkey might be just at a gun range for 30 minutes strutting and gobbling, and if you move one bit, he's gone. And if your foot falls asleep, or your butt falls asleep, and you end up having to move or something, it blows your hunt. So you got to think about it. You got to have some kind of vest where you can carry and be mobile, but also be able to sit and be comfortable and be on the ground. So those are, from a gear perspective, you got to research that. Like I said, they make these little strutter seats, little 1-inch legs and a little mesh seat, and you just kind of sit them up against a tree and you just sit your butt on them. And I like being a little bit elevated off the ground, that angle. My legs, I played baseball for a long time, so my knees and my ankles hurt all the time, and that works better for me. Plus, I don't have to wear the vest that's hot and heavy, so that's what I do. And they make lots of those little chairs like that, so you need to look into something. I mean, worst case scenario, just get you a butt pad and tie a little string to it and throw it over your shoulder so you can sit it on the ground and sit on it.
Yeah.
In the least, you need to do that. It's other than that, it's just your weapon, and then decoys. And decoys are kind of a hot topic. There's actually, I don't know about every state. I'm not going to make a proclamation here because I don't know the laws of every state. Some states used to not allow decoys. Most states do at this point, I'm pretty sure. The strategy behind that is a lot of things. I think that if you go into it thinking that your decoy is going to kill the turkey, that's probably, it might happen. It might work from time to time, but for me, I use the decoys more strategically. A lot of times I want to use the decoy to get the turkey the last however many yards. I also want to get him in position for the camera, or in position where I got more freedom and he's not looking right at me, In other words, I call this turkey around the bend in a road, or I call him up into a field, and he locks on to the decoy. He's looking away from me. He's not looking at me, right? So, I know we're talking about gear, but a little strategic comment there. Always think about if turkey's gobbling out in front of you, and you're like, oh, I found him, and you're excited. You run out there in the open, and you stick your decoy, and you walk right back behind it, and you sit down, and what happens? The turkey comes straight to you, and he's looking right at you as he walks towards the decoy. And then it really doesn't matter if you move or not, but if he can see a tick at 50 yards on a tree, you're going to do something that he sees, right? And he's looking right through the decoy at you. So decoys are a big part of turkey hunting. Some people like the challenge of not using a decoy. I use them. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll use Jake and gobbler decoys to, create. It just depends on the time of the spring and where I'm hunting, but decoys are a gear. I would say you need to at least have a hen decoy to use in different situations, so you need to look into decoys. But other than that, man, bottle of water, turkey hunting that's one of the things that's so cool about it, man. It's you, your weapon, your calls, and your instincts, and your woodsmanship. There's not, you don't really want to use an ATV. If you go driving in somewhere with a loud four-wheeler, right before daylight, or side-by-side or something, that's really not good. I mean, turkeys are pretty skittish animals. So, your boots, your camo, your gear, it's kind of a rustic hunt if you do it the way I do it. And so, you don't have the tree stands, and you don't have you really don't even have to have a lot for optics. I carry binoculars because binoculars are, a big part of everything I do in the woods, because I want to be able to observe and take advantage of what quality binoculars offer you as a hunter in every hunt. But you don't have to have them. I mean, if you're hunting with a bow or a shotgun, you're going to shoot the turkey in 30 yards. You don't have to have them, in that regard. He's probably going to be gobbling, or you're going to see him. So, that's your real basics. But I guess it's like everything else in the hunting industry, Sam. I mean, if you can think of it, they sell it, and you can find it, and somebody will sell it to you. There's lots of gimmicks. There's lots of good stuff that some people prefer. I'm not a minimalist by nature, but I am pretty much a minimalist in turkey hunting. I've become a minimalist. I've went through every phase. I guess when I was younger and I was learning to hunt, I was a teenager in college and stuff, you're supposed to have a turkey vest. Everybody has a turkey vest. You're supposed to take 100 calls. I don't really do so much of that anymore. I've got a couple of different calls because I want to be able to change up the sounds, and they're the ones that I rely on. And I'm kind of minimalist, but there's a lot of products. But, the calls, the weapon, and the gear, that's your essentials.
So we were talking a little bit about the camo and the layering system. You are actually doing some work. Speaking of camo, you like that transition here? You are doing some work
like you've done it.
With Scree gear.
Yeah, so I work. I know you've done several podcasts with different people associated with Scree, including the owner, and you wear Scree yourself. Mm-hmm. And for people that don't know, Scree is a performance-based layering system with a couple of different proprietary camouflage patterns. It's a performance-based type of hunting apparel that's designed to more athletic cut and designed to keep you warm and also keep you dry. And it's kind of designed to be able to take you from every season, every hunt, and do it in a layering system and debulk you and keep you lighter weight, but still be able to keep you warm and breathable. And we're using the merino wool and the Teflon coated poly and all the stuff that most of your performance apparel lines are doing. We're the same thing, but we're direct to consumer, so our prices are a little bit more responsible because we don't have the middleman. So that's kind of who we are. But for this conversation, I do a series called the Progression Series. I started that last year or in the fall, so we got some whitetail stuff, and you can find that on ScreeGear.com. And there'll be some turkey stuff that I did last year in Texas and Kansas and Mississippi. I've got some content, some video content coming out from last season in those three states. But last year, right prior to spring turkey season, Scree released their new Summit pattern. And if you've seen the Scree gear, if you haven't, please go check it out. But if you haven't seen it, or if you have seen it, the original Mountain Stealth was more of a refractive type of refractive, meaning more digital, and it was kind of gray, and it was kind of meant for timber mountain, considered Mountain Stealth. And the new camouflage pattern is a lot more green. It's got a lot more light colors. It's got a lot more contrast to it, and it is awesome for spring turkey. I am kind of the turkey ambassador for Scree right now. They didn't have a lot of that going on, but I immediately saw this pattern, and I'm like, guys, this is going to play awesome in the spring turkey woods, and it did. Everywhere from Texas to the Midwest to the South that I turkey hunted, it was phenomenal. And so the progression series, we're going to do a lot of spring turkey content, and I was sharing this with you, and I know before we started recording, and I know you know because you wear the gear was designed out west for the backpacker and the mountain hunter. And so much of that translates to spring turkey because you're mobile. You're walking, you're climbing, you're crawling. You're spotting, stalking in a lot of cases. And so this gear is very durable. It has warranties, and it breathes, and it's got waterproofing, and all the things that you would experience on a backpack trip in the mountains. A lot of those things translate to a spring turkey hunt if you're doing it the mobile way. A lot of the ways that we've been talking about. So Scree is I'm marrying those two things because while spring turkey really wasn't on the forefront of the innovation, this product translates very well, and the new camouflage pattern is phenomenal. And you can go check out some of my stuff on Instagram and on ScreeGear.com, and you can see it in the field, and it is very impressive. And we talked about the turkey's eyes and all that, and the summit pattern does awesome. So
nice. So as we're kind of winding this down, wanted to really quick give you a second to talk about T3 calls as well. Tell us about the calls. Tell us about the company. You guys also do custom calls too, right?
Yeah, that's kind of how we started as a custom call maker, and we, obviously have a line of stuff that we do that is just still custom in that we're a small shop, handmade craftsmanship and all that, but we can do custom design. You've seen the glass and the crystal calling surface pot calls or slate calls. Well, if you have, we've done a lot of different things. A logo, maybe a memorable picture of you with a turkey, or you and a family member with a turkey. I mean, we can build you a custom call that has that picture under the glass. Another thing that we do a lot of is promotional stuff. So like companies will have their logo put in there and give them out to clients and such things. And a lot of outfitters, we have a lot of turkey outfitters that do that, and they sell them in their lodges. And it's a custom handmade call, and we can brand them with different things like that. And then also for the big time turkey hunters that are real particular about what kind of calls they use, if there's a certain thing that they're looking for, say, hey man, look, this is how I like my mouth calls built, and I can't really get that on the retail shelf. We will build them for you. If you know what stretches and what thicknesses and what kind of cuts, and we can custom build that kind of stuff for you. But it's t3calls.com. But we make duck calls, we make deer calls. We actually just made a snow goose call that we're sending up in northwest Missouri at our buddy Brad Ganaway at Pro Outfitters is going to be the exclusive retailer of our new snow goose call, because he does those huge snow goose conservation hunts. So we do waterfowl and deer and turkey, but we're a small shop and we're handmade, so we're all about that. We're all about quality and craftsmanship. So that's kind of who we are. We're not trying to be a humongous nationwide distributed retailer, outsourced mass manufacturing. We're about making a serious quality product that is made out of hand selected, handcrafted materials and all that kind of stuff. So that's just kind of who we are. Really, just a couple of dudes that like to build calls, and we kind of enjoy the call making and the fellowship of selling calls and hunting with people that are using our calls. So that's just kind of who we are.
All right, so let's go through it one more time. People want to find T3 Calls online. Where are they going?
T3calls.com, and you can look up T3 Game Calls on Facebook or Instagram, and you'll find us. So T3, I guess one more thing, T3 stands for Talking the Talk. So a long time ago, when I first started doing this with Bruce, he's selling these calls, and he's calling them Talking the Talk custom calls. I'm like, well, that's cute and all, but you know how hard it is to brand and market that many letters on anything? It's like, yeah, I got to put a paragraph on the front of this hat, bro. That's just not working. So, so that's what T3 stands for. So if you search Talking the Talk, you'll find us that way too. So, yeah, we're on all the social media, YouTube, Vimeo, everything. Just look up T3 Game Calls.
All right, and if people wanted to find the Progression series on the interwebs, where are they headed?
So screegear.com, actually, all of our videos are on Scree's YouTube channel, and they're embedded on our own page at screegear.com. Or you can go to Scree's YouTube channel and find the playlist for that. And you can go to the Progression Series on Instagram and follow along with all of our stories and pictures and links to all our videos that way. So we're a digital media production, YouTube and internet distributed.
And finally, if folks wanted to follow along with your nonsense, where can they find you?
Locke Wheeler. I'm simple, dude. No dashes, no underscores, just my name, LOCKEWHEELER, at Locke Wheeler.
All right. There you go. So you know how we like to end it. If somebody came up to you and said, Locke, I'm sold. I want to get into turkey hunting, or I want to get into hunting in general. I don't feel like I have the background or resources to do it. What advice would you give that person?
Well, I'll answer it two ways. For turkey hunting, I would recommend that you research and seek out a guided hunt in the Midwest or in Texas, somewhere that you can go with someone who's going to tag you along and really let you experience the spring woods, because that's what's going to hook you and that's what's going to put you in that mode, where you just can't get enough and you start becoming a sponge. Because, what you don't want to do is try to do it on your own on public land, and it just gets frustrating. You can't find a turkey, and it's like, I can't hear a turkey gobble. What is this crap? It's hot, and there's mosquitoes, So, if you want to get into turkey hunting, I say, start there. Get the full experience, and then start to find how to do it on your own. As far as just generally an outdoorsman, man, I think that I know I've heard this talked about on your podcast, and you and I have talked about it. Just, man, the hunting community, like everything else, there's some sour apples, but generally, man, there's a lot of good people. And if you want to get into hunting in whatever part of the country that go to your local pro shop, go any outdoor retailer, and man, just introduce yourself. Just ask questions. Just ignore all the noise on a lot of the online forums and stuff where people are trying to, be bigger than the next guy and everybody. It's not a competition. The majority of the hunting world is good people, and the majority of the hunting world that's got any sense about them realizes that we have to grow our sport in order to preserve our rights. And conservation is about our land and it's about our animals, but it's also about preserving our legal rights to hunt. And if we don't recruit hunters and we don't get people involved and we don't become a family that welcomes people and gets them involved, we stand to not have the platform or the strength of numbers that we need to preserve our rights. So, take that to heart and realize that, when you reach out to people to get information and find out where to get started, and you should be finding people that are looking for you too, because we all should be recruiting others, and we all should be inviting them to go hunting and inviting. If you don't have access to the land to invite somebody, you should at least be open and friendly with your knowledge and your experience and your ability to try to help answer questions and put somebody in the right direction, because a lot of this nonsense, this bickering amongst hunters, and this, making you feel like if you can't go kill a trophy buck every year, then you're not a real hunter. I mean, that kind of crap, man, that stuff's got to stop, and I hope that new hunters aren't finding that, and I hope that if they do and they run into that they realize that's not the majority, and that they just, seek out the good guys. There's so many people that would love to take you under their wing, and if they can't take you on a hunt, they can put you, in the right place and lead you in the right direction, and they're willing to do so. So don't be intimidated, man.
That's awesome, man. Well, brother, I super appreciate you taking the time, hopping on the podcast. I know it's getting a little bit late out there, so I'll let you go.
Oh, man, no problem. I love talking turkey. You know that. We've done it so many times off of the recorder. So anytime, and I appreciate you giving me the chance to talk and share some of the stuff that I'm working on, and I'm just waiting on you to let me know when we're going to go turkey hunting. I know you claim you're all busy in April and stuff, but hey, man, you just got to make it happen.
Just call my boss. As long as I don't get fired, we'll figure it out.
I'm just waiting on your call, dude, and we're going to make it happen. So awesome. I appreciate you having me on, Sam. I enjoy every time we get a chance to talk.
Always good talking with you. All right, y'all, that'll do it for episode 92 of Living Country in the City. Another big thank you to Locke for taking the time out of his evening to sit and hop on the podcast. Make sure y'all check out the show notes page at livingcountryinthecity.com/92 to get more info about everything we've talked about in today's episode. But in the meantime, keep it country, y'all.
Thank y'all for listening to Living Country in the City. Get show notes and check out the blog, product reviews, events, and more at livingcountryinthecity.com.